welcome back to our brand new podcast. We're calling it the Bullpen, and we're kind of changing it. And our goal here is to combine all of our podcasts that we've produced so far into one consistent podcast. You guys can expect on a weekly basis. So we're kind of bringing like the high school podcast, the Around the Bases, the Rankings podcast, and any other podcasts that we've done into this one show. It'll be kind of relevant, like the topics that we talk about will be relevant based upon the time of the year. So that high school season, we'll be talking a lot about high school baseball. Now in this off season, we'll kind of be talking about just, fall winners, prospects, uncommitted spotlight kind of things. And then we'll be talking with coaches too, players, college coaches, high school coaches, just to kind of get some information from them about their upcoming season here in the spring, and just kind of provide more cool and fun information in one spot. So it's not so all over the place for our viewers. But Def, Pete, Drew, if you guys have anything to add with what we're doing here, I'd love to hear from you guys too.
No, just excited about getting this thing off the ground. I know it's something we've been talking about for a little while now, just how to, make this all uniform. So I know I'm definitely excited about what we got going.
Same here, and I think it's a perfect time of year, Gavin, to kind of kickstart this and try it out and bring on a lot of, a bevy of guests from all different kind of avenues. The high school coach, like you mentioned, maybe some former college, college players now that are former Illinois high school products, college coaches, provide quality insight to our viewers. I mean, that's the goal, hopefully, and give them something to listen to here in the off season, especially.
Yeah, and today I'm not going to say who it is, but we have a legendary coach coming on, legendary high school coach in Illinois coming on to talk with us. So I know we're super excited to get into that with him and appreciate him taking the time out of his day to come on here with us and talk some baseball. But I kind of want to transition now into, some baseball news. Last week, the World Series obviously happened and the Dodgers won. They won the series 4-1, but it was a really fun World Series for me personally to watch. I thought it was super exciting, a lot of offense happening, a lot of home runs. And then, the Freddie Freeman story is obviously really cool with everything that's happened with his kids and just kind of his family backstory. But, winning the World Series MVP and doing what he did on the biggest stage with everything that happened for him and his family this year was super cool and probably couldn't happen to a better person. He just seems like one of the most down-to-earth guys. So it was really cool to see him do it on the biggest stage.
I was going to say, it definitely was one of the more fun World Series that I've watched in a while. Obviously being a Cubs fan, 2016 was the best one. But, I don't know. I just wasn't really, watching too much baseball this year, I feel like, besides the Cubs. I don't know about you guys, but it's hard for me to just watch, MLB, casually. I can watch college baseball casually all day long. I don't know why. But the MLB is just harder for me to watch casually. But the second the playoffs come on and that World Series with the two best teams, I was watching it every night. It was, I don't know, something about it made it way more. I mean, the two best teams obviously, but I think I just hated both teams too. So I just wanted to see
on
some.
Top of that, Pete, you had, arguably the two best players in the game going at it with Shohei and Judge. I know Shohei got hurt, and then Judge really didn't have a good series, really a good postseason at all. But that for me, I thought was the coolest thing.
I mean, the Dodgers are just loaded with stars. The Yankees are as well with Soto. The thing I'm watching the World Series, I'm watching the playoffs. The fact that a guy built like Aaron Judge, who you can look at his numbers. How many home runs did he hit this year? The power, the build. I look at what is he? 6'5", maybe 230, 6'7", 230.
He's 6'7".
The guy is playing center field in the World Series, and I know he missed the fly ball in that last game, and that was a huge error. You could see it on the replay. He takes his eye off at the very last second, but I want to say the game before or earlier in that same game, I saw him have to range to left center up against the wall and make an incredible play. And it's just that's Aaron Judge out there doing that. These guys are on a different level. That is the best of the best. You look at the arms that are coming out there, what they're throwing. The pitch is 97 with sink, a slider right off it. They've got, plus command. How do these guys hit that pitching? And it is just, it's remarkable just the level of talent that you're watching there in the World Series. So that was a huge takeaway for me. Is just like, how is a guy like Aaron Judge playing center field?
I have a question for you guys. You guys remember that play to Rizzo that Cole just didn't cover, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Whose fault do you think that was? Because I've been getting into it with my friends, and like I'm on Cole. Like I'm against. I think it's Cole's fault personally, but like I don't know. I've been getting a lot of people saying Rizzo too, and
Pete,
it's
you
a little
probably
bit
did
of
it at
both.
Lewis. Like for those that don't know, 3 of us on here were college pitchers. Like you practice PFPs until like your eyes bleed, like just in college, and like when you're in spring training, that's all you do. Like
You got.
we
be
were told,
over there.
ball to the right side, just get over there.
I'm actually kind of
100%.
surprised it's even a conversation. It's on Cole 100%. He didn't get over there. It's on Rizzo. You don't expect him to be there. You expect him not to be there until he is. And then you have to know the runner. It's Mookie Betts. Like, you can't expect Rizzo to beat him to the bag. Like, especially with the velocity that ball was hit with. Like, to me, it's not even a question. It's on Cole, first and foremost. He's not there. You know, on top of that, could Rizzo have done a better job? Absolutely. And then it just gets magnified because of the situation. Every 90 feet in the postseason is huge. But yeah, you hate when something like that happens. Because Cole was locked in and it was impressive. I mean, that guy, I was getting Justin Verlander vibes. Just the way his presence on the mound, the way he zero emotion, on to the next pitch. Let's make this pitch as good as I can make it. He had feel for everything. He could go to any pitch in any count. I loved the demeanor he had on the mound, but yeah, that just can't happen. So sorry for jumping on that, but that to me is 100% all day, every day on the pitcher. If you're not there, it's on you. And then Rizzo, you can't expect him to be there. And then also you got to know the runner. Like that to me is it. If it's I don't even know anybody that's slow-footed in the big leagues, but if it's somebody more slow-footed and maybe Rizzo then can easily get over there. But come on, Cole. So yeah, that was a huge part though, Pete. Like that was a huge defining factor in that game. There were a lot of those though. So.
Yeah, and kind of just, to highlight more on Freddie Freeman, who was the World Series MVP. Game 1, walk-off grand slam to win it for them. And then he's the only player to hit 4 home runs in the first 4 games of the World Series. And then he's the only player to hit a home run in 6 consecutive World Series games. And that, I think, goes back to, 2021 when he was with the Braves. But also he tied for the most RBIs in a single World Series, which was 12.
That was he tied the most
big World Series.
So what's amazing to me in that stat is they only played 5 games. That's, if they won 4-1 and it's a lot of production in a small amount of games compared to being able to play 6 or 7.
But kind of bringing this back to the prep baseball, Illinois, Wisconsin landscape, Drew. We got some guys in the World Series that were from Illinois and Wisconsin, and Jake Cousins, Gavin Lux, and Bobby Miller.
It's like the coolest part now with what we do is being able to watch all these past Illinois high school players and see what they do in minor leagues, in the college, in the college ranks. And then obviously you get your 1%ers that make it all the way to the big leagues. And to see a guy like Gavin Lux, who was a mainstay at, PBR events back in Wisconsin back in the day, Super 60 guy. I got up close and personal looks at Gavin Lux a bunch, and just how you would draw up an athlete, left-handed hitting shortstop. I know they got him playing second base, but he can kind of play anywhere. He's athletic enough, and always been a huge fan of him. He's always had the it factor, but to see him, on the main stage playing in the World Series, starting, is just really, really cool. And then Bobby Miller did not make the 40-man, I don't believe. Had an up and down year, had a tough year, but he's a high level younger prospect for the Dodgers that has all kinds of velo. McHenry High School, went to Louisville out of high school and became a high pick there, and has just continued to kind of skyrocket up the system, and now has been in the big leagues with the Dodgers for a while. But really cool to see what Bobby's done. And then Jake Cousins, the guy that was pitching out of the bullpen for the Yankees, and Sean Duncan, owner, created Prep Baseball Report here in Illinois, shot us a note on that. Like, hey, Jake Cousins, really cool story, what he went through. I started in 2015 here with Prep Baseball. He was a 2013 grad out of Wheaton Academy. I didn't know him. I didn't know he was in the Yankee system. So like when Sean sends that over, like that is just really, really cool, and even more of a throwback, which I love. Like he came to the All-State back in the day, preseason All-State in the winter, and just really, really cool. He pitched in 3 games in the World Series. So you love seeing that representation here in the Midwest, especially in Illinois, and hopefully it continues. I know last year we had Alec Thomas playing in the World Series with the Diamondbacks, so let's keep it going.
Yeah, absolutely. But kind of transitioning now. So I kind of want to try and do this each week with we're going to call this like the scouting roundtable. And this week we're going to talk about like our fall winners from events this fall that we had. But like maybe next week we can talk through guys from tournaments and some JUCO guys the following week or something like that. But just trying to have a segment here where we can talk through players that we've seen, prospects that we like from recent events or things that are relevant at that time.
Danny Mackey III and Monroe Evans, they both came to our Chicagoland fall ID at Ozinga.
I think.
And then,
Brady was there too.
Brady came to the Chicagoland Open as well, the Chicagoland fall ID as well, but he did not come to the Unsigned Senior.
Yeah.
But Danny Mackey, I mean, first off, just that Chicagoland fall ID at Ozinga, it had a limited number of players, but every single guy there seemed like a college caliber player, and it was an open event, so that's great to see. Danny Mackey's got levers for days. He also is a two-way guy, but I really like the upside with the bat. The long levers, and it's really loose, really easy, balanced. He had a max distance of 344 and a max exit velocity of 90.1. But I think that like I used to coach at a JUCO. Like if that was a guy I could get my hands on and get him a ton of reps and add, maybe 20 pounds in a hurry to him, I think there's a high ceiling with Danny Mackey. And then Monroe Evans from Morgan Park also came to that event, came back to the Unsigned Senior. We wanted them to come back to the Unsigned Senior so that they could be seen by coaches that were going to be at that event. So Monroe showed all kinds of hand strength, all kinds of bat speed, swings the bat with intent. There is some anger almost with him at the plate, which you like to see if it's controlled, right? You don't want to see it all over the place and wild, but controlled intent was good to see, and all kinds of bat speed. And then you mentioned him, Peter, Brady Holland from Mount Carmel, an infielder that also was there at 2026, however. Danny Mackey and Monroe Evans are 2025s. But Brady Holland just showed really good actions. I love the way he kind of presented the glove on the infield, the way he moved around, played on the move, body control, really, really, really athletic double play turn. If you watch the video, decent runner. So he's one to watch there. I don't know if you guys have anything else you want to touch on with those two guys, but, or 3 guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, you nailed it right on the head. Like, I think there was like 6 kids at that event, and pound for pound, that was one of the most talented, like each kid was a college caliber guy for sure. Danny, I really liked it at the plate. I think you're right. He just needs to, gain a little bit of weight, and the strength and the power will come. But I really like the operation, and I actually really like the way it moves around first base too. He moves really well for his size, uses his levers well. The arm plays too, like he can play lacrosse, fielding the bunt, like he's a pitcher, so the arm works. Monroe Evans really, really, really liked it at the plate, like tons of intent. The blast numbers were pretty stupid. The bat speed, the hand speed, like the measurable. And I mean, the kid is also like one of the nicest kids I've met on the circuit. Like he was cheering for kids, like during the round of BP and like high-fiving them and like patting them on the back. Like you just don't see that. And then Brady, I thought Brady was probably the best defender of that day. He really stood out on the infield for me, like supernatural, fluid defender. And I actually like it at the plate too. I think he's got a chance to hit. But yeah, definitely will look to stay on the infield moving forward. But yeah,
you actually get in there and get to know these guys. when it is a smaller event. You get to talk to them. You get to ask them about their high school ball. You get to ask them about what's going on in the off season. Are they playing other sports? Whatever it may be. Tyler, did you have anything else on those guys? Or did you want to move on to anybody from the Unsigned Senior?
No, I think with Brady, it's interesting. Like, he goes to Mount Carmel. For me, like, maybe an early look ahead, like, Mount Carmel to me is one of the most interesting teams heading into next spring. I mean, they were a game away from going to state this past year. They lost to Pravi, who ended up winning state. But, man, the more talent that team, it just seems like that team has so much talent, like, all over their roster. So, interested to see if Brady's able to, get some varsity action this year for Mount Carmel.
Regardless, he should provide quality depth piece there on the infield, and I know they have some good infielders already. But yeah,
absolutely.
I guess Gavin, if you don't mind, we'll just kind of move over to the fall. We run 3 fall events at the max. Basically, starting with the first weekend in October, we start with the older guys, and then systematically go from the Unsigned Seniors to the class of 2026. And then our last event in the fall to wrap it up, we run the Underclass Showcase with 27s and 28s. The Unsigned Senior Showcase, there are still some quality 2025s on the board. And I think what really jumped off the page to me with some of these position players from the Unsigned Senior was the athletes that are still on the board. I'm going to start with Quaylen Petty. He goes to St. Lawrence. We saw St. Lawrence a couple times last year. They are loaded, positionally every year. Their roster is really, really good. And to crack that lineup apparently is very tough, because I don't think I saw Petty last year in the spring. But regardless, he is a name to know and to follow, and one that we would love to see, hit in a game. Play in a game just to see what's real here, because he ran a 6.4560. That's one of the top run times we've had on our lasers all year. And I'm talking All-American game. I'm talking Super 60, future games. That's an elite run time right there on our lasers. He also jumped a 36-inch vertical, which is, I would say, top 1% of all the guys that we had run and do verticals on our Swift testing this entire year. And then he was also 90 miles an hour from the outfield, and at the plate, he had all kinds of twitch. What I saw presently with the swing was a direct swing with twitch, with athleticism. He stays on top of the ball. And if he can continue to kind of flatten and level that path out to get some of those ground balls to turn into line drive backspin, you really might have something there with him. So Quaylen Petty jumped off the page. First guy I wanted to mention. Nolan Gala was another high-level athlete. He ran a 6.87. He jumped 37 inches, which is one of the top jumps I've seen doing this. He's also got tools across the board. He bounces around the infield. It's 88 across. It played with a little effort and was kind of the accuracy wasn't necessarily there, but there's all kinds of arm strength and talent. And then at the plate, there's all kinds of whip and athleticism in the swing, and he had a 95-mile-an-hour max exit velo. So those were 2 guys there. And then I know Tyler Trapp, as well, at Lane Tech. Pete, I know you got to see him. You got to see Lane Tech last spring. I know you were evaling hitters at this event. Anything you wanted to mention on Tyler?
Yeah, Tyler was he was part of that junior future game team. That was my first year doing it. That was probably my favorite team we've ever had. When Demarion Butler's on that team too. I'm going to talk about him a little later, Unsigned Senior. But yeah, Tyler, he just continuously gets better. Pretty physical now too. He definitely looks like he's put in work in the weight room, but it was guyish.
Well, I see he's got a 101 max in his
average,
profile.
honestly.
He had a 101 max from the Unsigned Senior, so that's a great call out. You clearly know him or have seen those numbers in the past. So yeah, he did have, I'm looking at it now, Tyler Trapp had a 101 max exit velocity and an average of 93.9, which is a very high average. Speaking of just being guyish and living on that barrel, which I think is kind of what you were getting at. He's added that quality strength. He's got the compact, muscular but athletic build, and it just keeps getting a little stronger. And Yeah,
Mhm.
it just seemed loud. Like every ball off his bat was just loud.
Yeah,
So
it was a wake up call. Yeah, I just stood out in a lot of different ways. I mean, 6'9" runner at that size too, and he took probably the biggest swing I saw all spring at that Chicago Chicago Public League Championship. A double over the center fielders had to tie the game. That was a ton of fun. So yeah, I mean, the strength is on display in game, but I would say he's even gotten stronger since then. Like he looked a little different. Like he looked like he was putting in some work in the summer. So
what he did at the Chicagoland Open or the Chicagoland Fall ID and then came back to the Unsigned Senior, just like Tyler Trapp, he had a 101 max exit velocity. They both were the top leaders in average bat speed from that event. I think when you start looking at max bat speed, that can get a little, I don't know the right way to put it, but I just like looking at the averages when you really start to break down the blast, because that's going to give you the most valid number. It is BP. You know, these guys can change their swings on a ball on the inner half, and, you know, right where they're looking for it, they can let it loose. And, you know, technically it's going to be a little different than how they'd swing it in a game versus a ball that's maybe a little bit on the outer half. So I love looking at the average when we start breaking down the blast numbers. But I mean, Monroe Evans averaged 79.9 mile per hour bat speed. And then Tyler Trapp was second with 74.8. So they both led that event. The bat speed was evident. And that's what I love about being able to mix in these blast numbers is, man, you watch a kid hit, I'm looking for bat speed. Like that is one of the top things I'm looking for is bat speed. And how easy does a kid get to his bat speed? And then we're not only able to watch it in real time, make notes on it, right? If we like their bat speed, slow bat, fast bat, quick bat, whatever, whippy, then we're able to get the numbers and we're able to cross-check everything. And it's just a great way to validate your eyes. Or, you know, there's some guys that swing really easy and really balanced and really smooth, and it doesn't look as fast in person as maybe it really is or what it registers. And you go back and you look at the blast numbers, you're like, wow. Like, okay, and he's doing it that easy. So we're really fortunate to be able to have that as kind of like a backup. And just something to lean on with these numbers, because, you know, it's all about the eye test. It's all about going out there and looking at it with your own eyes in person, seeing how the ball jumps off the bat, seeing the carry it gets, seeing the backspin versus topspin versus flare versus hook, whatever it may be. But then you're able to actually look at the numbers, which I love. So sorry to go on a tangent there.
Yeah, no, I love how you gave the numbers there. Like,
yep.
Monroe led at 79, 78. And then Tyler 74. Like 74 is no joke. And for Monroe to be leading it by that, like 5 miles an hour, like that just speaks to him and how crazy his bat speed is. Because 74 is like, that's pretty legit especially for an average. Like a lot of times you won't even see 74 as a max. And so just to be around that 80 mark from like Monroe, that's like super 60-ish numbers. Like,
because if you even go further and look from Monroe Evans leading it at 79.9, and you look at who's in third place, they're at 69.9. That's a 10 mile per hour difference in average bat speed. And the guy in third is Colin Roche, who I think could easily deserve a mention here. We could highlight guys for days and days and days. And I think we should try to as much as we can. And, you know, on here, just given as many guys love as possible, I think is great. But the 2026 event, why don't you guys take us away on that? Class of 26, it was the second event we ran at the Max this fall, the second weekend of our events there in October. All 2026s, what is that going to be? They're juniors right now. They're looking forward to their junior season. This is a big season for them. Who'd you guys like?
Yeah, I'll kick things off here. For me, it was Ryan Flanagan out of Lincoln Way East. Left-handed arm, might have been my favorite arm I saw all fall. When you watch it, it's very clean, very athletic. And I saw, you know, I asked him after his pen, like, where do you go to high school? And he's like, Lincoln Way East. And I'm like, man, I didn't think I saw him on any, you know, box scores when we're doing daily roundups and stuff like that from the spring. And, you know, I asked him, like, do you get varsity innings? He like, actually, I was rebounding from an injury. So kid kind of came out of nowhere for us, or at least me personally. And the thing I really liked, again, just how athletic the operation was, and like there's a solid foundation there with all 4 of his pitches. And it's not, super polished by any means, but it makes sense. Like kids rebounding from an injury. So for me, Ryan Flanagan's a guy that I'm really excited to track, throughout the winter and into the spring next year. Hopefully we get out and see the Griffins in the spring and just see how it translates in game.
Yeah, and I saw a couple, I was on hitters that day, so I got to watch Rhett Harris. He was a big right-handed hitter, and kind of like Drew and Pete were talking about earlier, like the averages are such an important thing to look at rather than the max sometimes. And Rhett was on the barrel throughout the round, and I think that kind of shows with your average exit velocity. It was 92.9 miles an hour, which is really, really impressive. And I just liked the way that it worked at the plate. He was a really strong hitter, had some power, had some juice to the middle, pull side of the field. And then Colin Quinn is another kid.
Looks very hitterish and kind of understands how to control at bats. Was the quick kind of synopsis that I had on him, was looked like a hitter. That's a guy that if we're kind of anticipating in the spring, I could see him making some noise this spring at the high school level.
And then Quinn Roberts was the last guy that I saw there that I really liked. Upside frame, had some power, was juicing the ball, 99-mile exit velocity, 373-foot max distance, and then, an average bat speed of 78 miles an hour. Like we mentioned before, it's really, really impressive. So good stuff from that event.
Yeah, it's an Underclass showcase. It was our last event of the fall. Really, really good way to kind of cap off the fall. And reminded me somewhat of our Chicagoland Fall ID that we ran. It was with all the players that were there, 27s and 28s, there were a bunch of guys that are going to be college players down the road. A lot of just solid follows from both classes, the 27s and the 28s. The 27s, though, I think they're just, for me, they're a little more present. They're sophomores. They are the class that we are going to be looking at very, very closely for the future games for next year, and it starts already. And one guy that I thought firmly put his name on just like that follow list that we're going to have to go see, does he play varsity next year? If he doesn't, like, what is he going to do in the summer? And that's Julio Ayala from Montini Catholic. Left-handed hitting infielder, and just really looks the part, checks a lot of boxes. I like the swing. It's fluid. It's athletic. It works. He uses the whole field. It's balanced. Infield-wise, like, he can stick on the infield. He's got the actions. He's got the tools. If he can continue to trim down his 60 time, he's just going to continue to help his prospect status. So, like, that foot speed to me right now for playing up the middle, if he can continue to get that better, and that's something that he's got the full off season now to work on. We saw him in October. Like, let's see what he can do in November, December, January. See if we see him in the winter, and if not, we're gonna track him down during gameplay this spring, hopefully, if he's playing varsity, like I mentioned. Another guy that I've long liked, and he just continues to do it, is James Abaldo at Fenwick. Another middle infielder. He's a right-handed hitter. Ayala's a lefty. But Abaldo, a lot like his older brother, he just hits, it seems like. He uses the whole field. He's got a knack for the barrel. For his size, he creates a lot of whip and torque in that swing, and he's got a lot of barrel feel. And then on the infield, he's very fundamentally sound. He's got good feet. He plays through the baseball. I like him a lot. And then Sebastian Wilson, committed to Tennessee. He's our top ranked 2027 in the class. He came back out and just continues to improve every time we see him, and continues to tick up his metrics. It was the best he's ever ran for us. And Peter, I don't know if you have a 60 time, or Tyler, if you have a 60 time on him. Yeah.
It was
so he
6.58.
ran a 6.58, which is down from, I want to say, a 6.7 or a 6.8, which he was running before. And given that he's a 2027 with his size and frame, like, he looks like he could be an impact football type player given the way he's built. Really impressive to see him run that type of 60 time. And then he just cuts it loose at the plate. He was all over the barrel, showing big pull side power, and really like him. Peter, if there's anybody or anything else you want to mention on those three guys, go ahead.
No, I mean, not too much. I did really like the not left-handed duo. Julio Ayala, the left-handed hitting infielder. Saw him last year for Montini. He was starting as a freshman at second base. I really like the swing, and I really like him on the infield too. Really like genuinely nice kid, very receptive to not criticism, but like we had kind of pulled him aside, like his defensive round, like he was trying to do a little too much. And he's very clearly like a naturally good defender, and the actions are in there for sure. And we just pulled him aside, like, dude, you don't need to do that. Like, just be natural and just let it play, And he's like, yeah. Like eye contact was really good conversation. James Baldo, yeah, I really like the bat there too. I thought you nailed it with him, and then Sebastian. Yeah, I think with him, it's like, like you said, he just keeps getting better. And he doesn't have like, it's not the most projectable frame, right? He's not like super tall and like skinny. He's already like filled out, and he's physical, but he keeps continuously getting better anyway. So yeah, I mean, that kid's a freak. Then moving down, actually, Anthony Killick. I think that's what I was kind of thinking of, like the left-handed hitting duo between him and Julio. Yeah, Anthony, super loose, super athletic, really, really easy. Really likes his round of BP, stays balanced, use the whole field with ease. And then, Kilmick's not an infielder, he's an outfielder, but it's still really athletic out there. It's got a really
he's a
future.
Joliet Catholic prospect. I didn't have a ton on him before this event, Pete, but there's a lot to work with the swing. Like, he's just a loose-bodied, fluid mover. Like, that's what his body type is. That's his movement patterns. And at the plate, like, he just needs to get stronger. Needs to continue to work on controlling the barrel and repeating the swing, but the foundation is there. But man, he jumped out to me just the way he was floating around the outfield. It's inside, it's at the max. Watching outfield defense, there's only so much you can get out of it inside. But you're looking at, okay, first step, how does he flow to the baseball? Does he get around the baseball? Can he range? Does he have body control? Is he playing through the ball? How does he present the glove? What's the arm action look like? How does he play through get to his arm? Does he have to crow hop 4 times to get to his max velo, or is it all smooth, one motion, put it on a line? And it was like, that was a college prospect I was watching doing a defensive workout in the outfield. It was ultra easy, fluid. The glove action is what did it for me. It was like ultra confident for a 2027. You just don't see a guy play through the baseball the way he did. And then the looseness in the arm and just the overall, like, I'm a guy look to it. He took one ball and I was like, Pete, like, like that's how it should look. Kind of reminded me of like how Alec Thomas looked floating around the outfield back when he was that age. And Killick's arm actually plays a little bit better now. Not comparing the two, just the comp that I had, or what it reminded me of, I guess, is maybe a better way to put it. But yeah, definitely stood out to me, Pete. And Tyler, I know you were working the mound that day, so give me some of your standouts on the mound.
Yeah, 2 right-handed arms for me that really just popped that day. Miles Mazanowski, I know he popped for you guys over with the bat as well, but he's a 2027 who goes to Lane Tech. It's kind of a more mature frame for what you'd see for a high school sophomore, but another guy who just kind of had a live arm. He had the hardest fastball for the event at 84 miles an hour, but it also had a ton of carry. It averaged over 17 inches of induced vertical break through the zone. So he really stood out there, and then he would pair it off with a quality slider to really play well off that fastball. And then Colin Giles is a guy that, I'd never seen before, going to St. Ignatius. Really, really interested to see if this kid gets varsity innings this spring for them. Athletic mover, high-waisted, so there's probably a lot more left in the tank there, but what really stood out with Colin is just the field of spin with all of his offerings. His fastball was getting over 2,500 RPMs of spin. His slider breaking ball was getting 2,700. So pretty advanced there for a high school sophomore, but those were just my 2 guys to.
Just like some other 27s that I thought stood out in their own way, like Tanner Toback, I thought had a good day. Brandon Beasley, left-handed hitter that I hadn't seen before, has a chance. Gavin Weston's a 2028 that really stood out to me on the infield. Just looks like a ball player, and I think it was decent on the mound. Pete saying he can pitch. And then some other 28s like Johan Lasn. I don't know how I would go about pronouncing that last name. But he had big tools and kind of looked like a thoroughbred athlete just in the uniform for a 2028. They're not built like that very often. He ran a 702. He also jumped out of the gym from what I remember. And then another guy that I think has a high upside, one to watch in that 28 class is Jenner Smith, 6'1", 160, just like long, athletic, kind of that younger looking face, but I think he's going to fill out and be really physical one day and have some tools. If I'm looking here, he ran a 7.72. So also thought there was something in the bat there. So just a really good way to finish off the fall. Plenty of follows to get with moving forward. And Gavin, I know I'm going to turn it over to you here.
Yeah, we got, the St. Louis Fall ID was our last event here. And a kind of perfect way to end our fall winter segment here with, a Southern Illinois legend coming on here in a little bit with our as our guest. But yeah, Pete, I know you and I were down there. We were on reports for hitters and pitchers. But I just want to quickly talk about a couple arms that I really liked. Mick Niebrug, I think is how you say his last name. He's from Teutopolis. He was like 80 to 80 or 85 to 87 up to 88. Really big kid. But I like the way he moved. Like, it was super easy. Good arm action. Then he had a quality slider, too, that had low IVB. And, I think it was 2,300 to 2,400 RPM on the spin. So quality spin, too. So I really like him. That's another arm for Teutopolis. They've got Gavin Addis. And, I think there's another kid. I can't think of his name right now. But
there is.
Teutopolis has some
You're
arms.
going to make me look it up because I think Austin Boris, and he's very talented.
Yeah.
He was at our Illinois State game.
Austin
and
Boris.
I wanted to, I had to look it up because the last name that you threw out there, and I don't know how you pronounce it either, but Mick and however you said it. Yeah, Niebrug. So
Niebrug?
he is,
Niebrug?
if you look up that last name in our system, there's 4 guys that have come through Teutopolis with that last name. I don't know if they're all brothers. I don't know if some are, cousins or whatnot, but they're all baseball players who've gone on to play in college. And yeah, that's, so there's some bloodlines there and a name that I was just kind of familiar with coming through Teutopolis.
Yeah. And I think I got one more arm to mention. His name's Matthew Crownhart. He's a homeschool kid. From what I heard at the event, it sounds like he's going to be going to a high school. I can't remember which one. I'm not sure if that's been decided yet or what, but he was a left-handed arm, super easy mover. It was loose, low 80s, but like the stuff, the velo might not be there yet, but it's like a lot of these guys where he just moves so well. It's easy, it's loose. There's not a ton of effort that like he looks like a guy that, in a couple of years we'll be talking about him and his velo is going to be mid upper 80s. So I really like that, but I think with St. Louis, with this event, talking about a couple of these arms, I love going down there because you see guys like this pop up that are quality arms that we don't really have a ton on. And it's everywhere we go, I feel like down there, there's always some sort of arm that pops up that is really talented, uncommitted, and they're probably from like a smaller school if they're not from that Metro East area to have. And we get to see guys like that.
To your point, they pop up out of nowhere, Gavin. Like our top 10, if you look at our top 10 class in the 2025s right now, I just pulled it up, but Brandon Menser at number 10, he's committed to Cincinnati. He's from Cesar-Villiers High School, which is down there in between St. Louis and Carbondale. Very small school, but like there's multiple guys that pop up like that. And there's guys down there, I guarantee you, that we don't even know right now. Maybe there are 3-4 guys that haven't had an opportunity to get to an event, but it is just a plethora of it's an arms factory down there, it seems like.
And Pete, we've got Aiden Peterson on here. I don't know if you want to mention him. He was a West Glen kid that you saw.
Yeah.
I believe he was a big right-handed hitter.
Yeah, no, I mean, speaking, like you said it, like there's a ton of arms down there, but I was blown away with the depth of the bats at this event, especially for it only being like under 20 kids. Like there was numerous kids that I thought have a chance to play at the next level. Aiden Peterson was, first on this list here. West Glen 2027 kid, led the event in multiple different categories. He's 5'10", 211, so pretty physical. He had 101 mile an hour max exit velocity and average 94. So for a 2027, that's pretty crazy. And a 373 max distance. Then Carson Farrell, he's a Collinsville kid, 2026. I really liked him. Super loose, athletic. He was all over the barrel too. Is up to 90 miles an hour. Pretty athletic looking kid. And then, yeah, Chase Snyder, Ballmeyer catcher, 2026. He was a really good prospect from the day all around. I liked him defensively. Could swing it too. Really good kid. And then Nathan Walker, a Muscuda kid, another 2026. Just a left-handed hitter to know. He was up to 94 miles an hour and hit the ball. Furthest was just under 360. So the bats were they were swinging it for sure.
No, yeah, I just want to mention we'll be back down there.
Go ahead, Drew.
At the Sports Barn this February. It's going to be our main St. Louis event that we run on the Illinois side. We'll also run an event in Peoria. But we want to see these guys because there's a ton of them, and it's a beautiful venue that we'll be at. I'm going to check the exact date right now. It's February 22nd. It's a Saturday, and we'll be at the Sports Barn, and that'll be a huge day for us. Just continuing to get follows for the spring on who we need to see down there.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of wrapping up the fall winners and kind of transitioning now into another segment, our final one here of the day before we get into our interview with a legendary coach down here in Southern Illinois. We're going to start calling this Prospect of the Week. Our idea behind it is kind of just to try and shine more light on an uncommitted senior, uncommitted 2025. And we're all going to try and come up with different names and just kind of talk about them quickly just to give them some more love.
Absolutely. No, I love anytime we can shout out some guys, I'm all for it. And this one, honestly, I'm surprised he's still on the market. Left-handed pitcher Franklin Kirchner. He was a second-team All-State guy for us this year after a huge spring for Conant. Helped lead Conant along with plenty of other guys they had on that squad. But he was a huge factor on the mound. He threw 65.2 innings. He was 10-1. Gave up 52 hits, struck out 82, walked 22, had a 1.81 ERA, and helped Conan to a runner-up finish there in 4A. Just a competitive low 80s lefty that can pretty much throw any pitch in any count. And Tyler or anybody else that's really dove in and seen him pitch can speak to that more. But just with how hard it is to find left-handed pitching in general, and then to find somebody that can really pitch, that had success, that pitched in big moments, that thrived in big moments, I should say, because he pitched the semifinal game to get them to the state finals. So, Tyler, if you want to just go off of that.
Yeah, me and Gavin were there. He went toe-to-toe with Ryan Sloan. Major league draft pick by the Mariners this past summer. So he also just seemed like he had a steady heartbeat that day too, which, I mean, going up against a guy you know is getting drafted. So kudos to him. No, he should be plucked. I think any school around here would be lucky to have him. But going into my prospect of the week, I'm not going too far. About 5 minutes down the road for me is Colin Roche at Naz. Catcher for the Roadrunners. He's 6'2", 184 pounds. The thing that stands out with Roche for me is just how he catches, how he manages a game back there. Saw Naz twice last spring and just really love the way he handles himself, how he handles the pitchers, handles big moments behind the dish. It's a guy that doesn't get lazy back there, which for a high school catcher, it makes sense. Even in college, you got guys that get, maybe a little lazy towards the end of the game, but that's not really Colin, at least in the looks that I've gotten of him. Like I said, stood out in the spring, stood out again in the summer when we saw him, and then was really good at our Unsigned senior event this fall at the Max that Drew teased a little bit earlier. He had a 30-inch vertical jump, which for a catcher I feel like is pretty rare. He was also a sub-7 runner at the event. Was 82 miles an hour from the crowd, so he's got a strong arm to go with everything else in his game. So, just really like Colin Roche's game, and excited to see where he goes at the next level.
Yeah, Chuck has long been a really good receiver of the baseball too. So I really like that shout out for Chuck. I have two. Don't get mad. I just couldn't decide which one to pick, so I'm just going to do them both. Chase Peterson, he's kind of one of the first names that comes to mind when thinking of uncommitted seniors right now. Brought him to the senior future games in Georgia. Just loud tools across the board. 6'8" runner. A super intentful right-handed swing that's all over the barrel whenever we see it, especially in batting practice. He's routinely up to 100 miles an hour. He can get up to 88 from the outfield. And he's got some pretty good blast numbers too. Did anyone see him play in the senior future games? I didn't get to catch any of that. Wasn't sure if anyone saw it.
I did. I don't have my headphones plugged in right now because my phone's about to die. But yes, he was all over the barrel. Like, I thought out of all the Illinois guys that were at the senior future games, I thought Chase Peterson did more for himself than maybe anybody else other than Julian Ashley Friedman. I thought had a really good week too. And Dominic Holton by no means was a slouch, but I just thought Chase, every time I saw him, was splitting a gap, hitting a double. And I love the motor he plays with. He seems like a very hard-nosed kid on the field and was a great kid in the dugout. So that's what I had on him, Pete.
Nice. And then, Demarion Butler, Kenwood kid. He was a junior future gamer a few years ago, part of that team that I really loved coaching. So he's just more like he's like a compactor middle infielder. Good barrel control. He can kind of shoot the gas, more of a line drive hitter. Not a ton of pop in there yet, but I'm sure that'll come in the coming years. But I just really love the way he floats around the infield. Got a chance to see him in the Chicago Public Championship, that same game when I talked about Tyler Trapp. And he's just long been a really good defender. I'm surprised he's not plucked yet. But, yeah.
My uncommitted prospect of the week would be Ryan Lazuski. I really liked him at the state games. That's honestly the only time that I have ever seen him. He was an upside frame, that long, lanky, 6 foot, 162 pounds. And I was on left-hand hitters that day for our workout day, and I got to see him. And it was a 91 mile an hour average exit velocity, so he was on the barrel throughout. But aside from that, what I really liked was just how his pre-pitch movements looked. Like, it's just super loose, super athletic. And he's got that left-hand swings, which, always good. But he's an athletic defender too. Had clean footwork. Played, middle infield. Showed range to both sides. He's got a clean and loose arm action that looks right for an infielder. And it was 84 miles an hour across. And then in game too, just looking back at the stats, he was 3 for 6 with a double and an RBI at that event, which he's going up against some of the best arms in the state. So that's an uncommitted 2025 right there to know, and we'll keep an eye on some of these other guys and keep doing this throughout our podcasts each week. But I think that kind of wraps it up for us here. I think it was, an awesome podcast, an awesome first podcast here with our new revamped kind of style with the bullpen. Doing an interview with a coach each week or a player, I think will be a super awesome to have, and I think it's going to continue to provide more insights for these high school players and even the parents, just to try and understand maybe the recruiting landscape, what it takes to be successful at the high school level and beyond. And I think that's our goal. I think all of us are trying to just provide insight for both the players and parents to really understand the high school landscape, recruiting, what it takes to be successful, all those kinds of things. Aside from just what we provide in the event, that's kind of our goal here.
With revamping this podcast a little bit, we are trying to bring in anybody and everybody that we think is vital to Illinois high school baseball and what's going on here and can provide quality insight. And I think we have a perfect first guest, Tim Funkhouser, the head baseball coach at Edwardsville High School. He is a legend in his own right, and I'm going to get here, Coach, as we welcome you on. Hopefully everything's good with the connection, but just some introductory nuggets on Coach Funkhouser, because it is a long list of impressive things you have done in your baseball career. Let's see. So tell me tell me what I am wrong with here, if anything. But you took over in the 1998-1999 season at Edwardsville at age 26. You since have won 14 regionals, 12 sectionals, 8 super sectionals. You've had 2 state runners-up. You've had a third-place finish, and you have won 3 state titles. You've won all 3 in the last 4 years, or 3 out of 4 that you guys were actually able to play. Your record at Edwardsville is 742 and 186, which is an 800 winning percentage, which that's stupid. And your career wins, including triad, is 835, 8th all-time in Illinois. You are a 3-time IHS BCA 4A Coach of the Year in 2019, 2022, and 2023. You were the IHSA Baseball Coach of the Year in the 2016-2017 season. You are in the Hall of Fame in the National High School Baseball Coaches Association, also in the IHSA Baseball Coaches Association, and the St. Louis Amateur Baseball Hall of Fame as well. And I see you might be on mute right now. And if you are having trouble, welcome. But those are just a couple fun facts. Did I mess anything up? Do you know all these? Do you have them written down on your board right behind you and look at them every day? Or how are you doing, Coach?
Well, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me today. This will be enjoyable, and thanks for everything that Prep Baseball Report has done for our game. I know it's been a long time. We've had a relationship, and it's seen a great growth in our game, and it's been great for it. And
I mean, I'll get right in there, Coach. Like, one thing that's always impressed me with you is how you handle your program. And your program has won 30 plus games a year, more than I think it hasn't. And I'll just start with, like, what is your vision with your program, with your team? What is the most important thing to you? I've always seen you early in the year at the Kickoff Classic, and I feel like from that point to when you get into the postseason, your lineup, you could have 40 different lineups, 40 different players playing at any given time. Give me just your overall take on Edwardsville, what you're trying to do, and how you go about it.
Well, we want to schedule the best opponents that we can, and with that comes we have a lot of depth usually, so then it creates intercompetition as well as feeling like 1 or 2 guys don't have to carry the load. And then whenever we schedule high level opponents throughout the season, it continues to test our guys. Whether it's conference, which has always been tough, but our non-conference is extremely tough too, which I think refines kind of the game, and it points out our flaws, as well as gives your number 5 or 6 or 7 a pitcher a chance to pitch against teams that are as good or sometimes even better than our conference teams. So when we get to the postseason, we've already seen maybe a team of the caliber you might face in a state tournament, or even sometimes we
100%, right?
First game. I mean, last year we faced a guy throwing 97 in our regional semi, and we were the number 1 seed. So you got to find a way to get by to the next game. And I think our schedule really helps with that. And then we just try to build a conducive environment for growth. That hopefully we work on developing all the players. I think that was kind of evident last year when we played in our 3rd place game, and I hadn't coached in the 3rd place game. I talked to some veteran guys up at the state tournament that actually had been, and they talked about how they were trying to get more guys in, and trying to balance that competitiveness with taking care of your guys. I mean, it was easier for me to make that decision of pulling guys out early and throwing other guys in there that hadn't been playing consistently because they had been working hard throughout, and they expected to do well, and they went in. Sure enough, they did extremely well.
To me, and I was talking to our guys a little bit before this interview, before we hopped on here, and I think I've mentioned it in the past too, and I told you to your face when I saw you in Joliet, I think, but I thought last year was, from afar, one of the most impressive coaching jobs that you've done. I've seen Edwardsville now. I started doing this in 2015, and you've had all kinds of high-level players come through with big commitments, whether it's, Matthew Boyer going on and doing what he did, or a Drake Westcott going on and doing what he's doing now. I could go on, Hayden Moore, on and on with former players. But coming into this year, you have Joe Chirotto, who's a big commit. You've got Tony Eberlin committed to TCU. Chirotto's committed to Alabama. But right before the playoffs, you lose Chirotto, who not only is he one of your top arms, I mean, he's a low 90s guy that competes, that can throw multiple pitches in any count. He's not just a talented guy. He's a now guy. He's a guy that wins. So you lose him, who also plays center field when he's not pitching. He hits in the middle of your order. How did that impact you guys? How did you handle it? What was the message to the team? Because you go on, like you said, first game of the playoffs, you face a guy throwing 97. You are led by sophomores on the mound then throughout the entire playoff run. So take me through that. Am I overstating it? Did you feel like you guys had to make moves? The guys stepped up? Like, what is your take on that?
I think just really our culture is strong. I mean, it amazes me as I've coached over the years how much ownership our players have taken on. And the need, I would say that when a couple things happened during the course of the year, we had several different injuries throughout the year. And truthfully, we've had several injuries leading up to the state tournament. I mean, we had our number 4 hitter a few years ago, Joe Copeland, he played the first maybe 3 innings of our semi game against Brother Rice, and then had to come out of the game and didn't play in the state championship game. And then we had kind of that next up mentality. Another guy went out there, and I think that was Chirotto playing right field that game as a freshman. But we've had multiple instances of that. Adam Powell ended up hitting an opposite field home run in the state championship game, batting 4th. And he was struggling, truthfully, he came off an injury his junior year. He was struggling to get in the lineup at the beginning of the year. His production didn't dictate it, but his work ethic and his past performance did. And it's just a testament to the culture we have. Last year, with the 2 sophomores, with Milburn and Eberlin, kind of leading the way on the mound, and Hunter Ball was another sophomore. Those guys got some competition as freshmen, and Hunter pitched against McCracken County and several teams in high leverage situations as a freshman, and Milburn continued to develop that way, and Eberlin too. It showed stuff, but he continued to show more poise and consistency during the course of the year. And we never had to have a talk of really the 2 things I'll get back to. 2 things I think were significant to identify where our team was. Number 1, Chirotto going down, and he was playing with some injuries leading up, and we didn't think it was going to be a season ender. But when we discovered that, the team just continued to move forward. And I didn't have to have a talk of like, hey, we can still do this. Guys will step up, and like kind of your rah-rah stuff. It was, everybody knew the situation, and let's go. The second challenge was really when the seeds came out, and we knew we were going to face Ethan Bagwell from Collinsville. And even though we had been the number 1 seed, we faced the number 6 seed in our subsectional, and that was going to be straight out the gates. And our guys, the way they reacted, like I saw it on the internet. I didn't know if all the guys knew, because it just came out within the half hour. So I talked to them briefly and was kind of weighing a response or whatever. And they kind of just was ambivalent to what was going on. Like, okay, coach, thanks. And we never really had to talk about it again. Our guys kind of went that mission focus. And I think it shows a great maturity. A lot of it, I think, starts each year in the weight room. A lot of it carries over from previous years. We've had a lot of recent postseason success, but even before that, I think it builds a lot of confidence from the teams and the guys that came before. So I think we have several multiplier effects, and that would be the history, as well as just knowing that the guys before went through a path. And then also our multiplier effect is trying to encourage every guy, the buzzword is for everybody to create the best version of themselves. But we try to take that to a level of growth in their individual game as well as the team game. So I know everybody's working on individual development throughout, but we try to get more specific with that, whether it's pitching or whether it's on the base pass, defense, etc. And I think that as guys build confidence, and they're able to build skill, and then get into action and see how it translates, I think as the season progresses, they continue to feel like we're not playing. Well, I guess one of the things I mentioned during our early season, like before the season started and you got the 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks before we actually start games, I mean, we were inter squadding, and we're able to do a lot of inter squads early in that time because we have some pitching depth, and you're able to see good pitching throughout and really hone the skills. But our guys, we wanted to make sure that our guys understand that they're playing against the game, and we don't want to play against the opponent. We definitely don't want to play against ourselves. So as we kind of sold that mantra and got guys to really singular focus on just playing against the game, it doesn't matter who you're playing against, the Dodgers and the Yankees. The Yankees did not play the game well in that one inning, and it just destroyed them. I mean, the most fundamental things of watching a ball into your glove. It was a tougher play for Volpe on the run, with the runner kind of taking some of the throwing lane, and then obviously not covering first base for Garrett Cole. But
a few that stick out to me is when I watch you coach, and you mentioned you're playing against the game. When I see you at the Kickoff Classic, which is the first weekend of the season, and when I see you, whether it's at Lincoln Land in a super sectional game against Marist and Coach Sefcik over there, when they had Kendall Ewell and Jason Hodges and Justin Janis and all kinds of good players, or when I see you at the state finals, your demeanor never changes. The way you take the third base coaching box, the way you handle big situations in a big moment, maybe it's changing inside of you. Maybe there's turmoil going on, but that's something I've always been really impressed with. And I think that trickles down to your team. Your team always takes on the persona of the head coach, and your team never seems rattled in a big moment. Even last year, I think it was the state finals, could have been the semis, but that was one takeaway that I have on you, and just how impressed I am with how you handle yourself on the field. But getting back to your team getting into mission mode and facing, getting a tough draw where you're facing an Ethan Bagwell. That's something you guys have had to do year after year after year after year, if I'm not mistaken. And whether it was the year before getting through a Xander Muth, or years in the past getting through a Hayden Yanger from O'Fallon, who's now at the Blue Jays. So that takes me to the question of I want to talk about your area. I want to talk about Edwardsville. The St. Louis area is loaded. There is good baseball down there, and just that entire Southern Illinois, going all the way over to Effingham, you talking about scheduling good teams. But has it always been like that down in St. Louis ever since you were growing up? Has anything changed? That's where I want to start with first, and then I'm going to take it over to just Edwardsville and your town and talk about that a little bit next. But talk to me about St. Louis, the area, how much they care about baseball. Has it always been that way?
Oh, I'd say there's always been a contingent of teams and programs. I mean, there's programs within it that annually are competing at a high level with the ability to go deep in a playoff run, as well as try to win our conference. And then there's those elite type of players that can help carry some of those guys along the way, or that can just be your stopper for your team. But no, we've had, Highland, Joel Hawkins, he's always prepared. He's the guy that's always has his team ready. And then all of a sudden you throw a Odorizzi on top of it, and you're looking for holes to poke in. And fortunately, we outlasted him a few years ago in the postseason, and he ran out of pitches basically, and we were able to win in that extra innings. But like Xander, Xander, I was able to have the privilege of coaching him in the summer and the fall 1 year, and just a great quality guy, as well as phenomenal talent, and not just a prospect, but a guy that just wants to be a dude and a great teammate for those guys. So we got to experience that in the summer, competing against him and having your hitters to try to create a plan when he's running fastballs almost towards their neck, and then breaking off a sweeper across and trying to tell him to stay on a sweeper away when that ball, like, that wasn't a conversation. We didn't even have that as a plan, because I didn't want somebody to get hit. And then sure enough, my own son got hit in the head right before he came out of the game. No, we've had the St. Louis area in general, of just not the Metro East. And we go up to Chatham, and Chatham comes down and plays in our tournament during the middle of the year, and Highland plays every year. Teutopolis, a 2A team, I think they've beat us 2 out of the last 3 teams as a 2A program, but that they play the game extremely well. They've had a great history themselves, and Coach Fleener does an outstanding job. So putting our guys in those situations, our conference, we've always had teams throughout that, whether it's an O'Fallon, a Belleville East, Belleville West, Collinsville, Alton had a great squad last year, and their staff always does a great job, and really just throughout really helps prepare us. And then we were able to bounce over and play the DeSmits, the Vianis, and the Francis Howell. You take Francis Howell, this year, when I look at our schedule, I think we have 11 or 12 games on the road in a row, which is bad schedule. I'm the schedule maker. So basically there's a bylaw that says that you can miss 2 days of school twice. And to get a full experience, we're going to be able to go, but to really have a full experience, we're just trying to combine those 2 days to make it that you can travel 4 days. So that's something that if you're a coach out there, if you can talk to your AD, your principal, whoever's the voting member of the IHSA, the town halls will be coming up soon, and we should be able to find out by December. And if not, we just won't have as much full experience. But USA Baseball invites teams each year. There's been some Illinois teams. I think there's been 3 Illinois teams in the past. And they invite teams all around the country. Corona, California, who ended up being the national championship in most publications last year, will be returning after they won it last year. So there'll be several teams, I'm sure, from California. There's several teams from Florida. And it's really just a great experience at the training complex. Everything I've heard from all the coaches that have gone kind of across the country have said that if you ever get the opportunity, you have to go. So it's going to be a great experience. So we're just hoping to have the full experience. And right there in Cary, which is right there in that triangle with Duke, North Carolina, and North Carolina State, Wake Forest nearby. Hopefully we'll be able to take a campus visit to one of those, as well as maybe catch a game or 2, as well as face some of the best competition. But that when we come back from that trip, then we host Francis Howell on a Friday, or I think we might travel to Francis Howell on a Friday. Last year we were able to face Christian Brothers and Jason Mott's team out of Memphis. So we've established great relationships, and the McCracken staff, they do such a great job and have a great facility. So our guys just take a 2-hour jaunt due south, and to be able to expand those boundaries. So really the whole Metro East, but then we're able to kind of expand that by hosting the teams early in the year from the Metro East Kickoff Classic, which we're just about to finish up the schedule. We got some exciting things. I was kind of waiting on the schedule for we have a new park in town that is about 3 years old, but we've added 4 high school fields are in the progress right now. So it's like they're going to have one quad that's going to kind of remind you of like Lake Point, the way it ramps up, and it's going to be really nice. And then it's 2 of the fields are kind of like Hoover, where you can also play youth games in the like 2 youth games in the outfield at a time. So it's really expansive, but we'll be able to utilize those fields, all turf fields, which will just make the event even better. So
about the NHSI, Coach, I want to get that announcement out there as much as we can to give your players, because it's for your players to get the experience that they've earned and deserved by you guys being selected to that event. And from sitting here in Illinois, I know how big of an honor that is for them to invite an Illinois team. It doesn't happen very often. It's a lot of California, a lot of Florida, a lot of those premier, baseball states, if you may. But Brother Rice has been invited from Illinois in the past. There's been a few other schools, and hopefully we can pass something so you guys can be down there for the full time, the full experience, and get that. And then alongside that, represent Illinois well and do well. And you have the players that will showcase well there, and the team obviously, like you guys always do, will play the game the right way or attempt to. But Gavin, I think Coach brought up, these facilities that are coming down to the Edwardsville area, this 4-field complex. And just in general, I feel like fields down there have been popping up. They've been investing in turf fields all around the area, whether it's Gordon T. Moore down there in Alton, or your own JV field at Edwardsville, having a turf facility at Edwardsville, and just Edwardsville being a special community in the state in general. But Gavin, go ahead, and I know you want to get in there.
Yeah, Coach, I know you don't have a ton of time left, but just quick question. How, a lot of teams have a hard time, like year to year, continuing to have success as a baseball program, just with trying to get, the right players and find success. But what are you guys doing, and your staff, what are you guys doing to try and develop like the youth baseball players to try and get them to, be the type of talent that Edwardsville is used to?
Well, we have a lot of players that play the game when they're younger. Our middle school is probably our main feeder program. I know there's a ton of guys playing summer ball and then the spring prior to that, and even some fall ball. But we're able to, a lot of our staff, I don't coach the middle school. I've always kind of been that outlier if we needed somebody to coach, but it's also given me a chance to see my own guys play, or my own sons play in college fall programs, or that's setting. But a lot of our coaches coach those teams, so they're able to kind of streamline kind of what the program's about, just the daily work that goes into it. We try not to make it a super ramped up where they're getting their daily work in, but they have to have fun. That's kind of one thing that I didn't talk about our varsity in general. Like it's about having fun. One of the things that we have on the back of our stadium wall, whenever I put up we bought a kind of a brick type thing that goes in the side of the backstop, and it said play for the love of the game. And that's something that I always wanted to, even if we're playing at a high level or playing for a state championship or whatever, play for the love of the game. And that's what kind of Drew, you talked about earlier, about kind of having the presence or just enjoying the moment at the state tournament. Like that's a true blessing that I feel like our team has given. And we've prepared along the way. So you want your players to trust it, but then you need to make sure you enjoy the moment. Cause I think there's been some times maybe in the past where I wanted to win so bad that it was more of a, let's make sure we win rather than just enjoy and trust yourself and be yourself. But our kids in our community, I think, see our fields. They know that we value them as individuals as well as try to grow a team environment. So that would be our main feeder program. And then we have camps and stuff like that really try to tie in some past players. And we bring out a lot of times that camp has been, we'll get off a bus. If we go to the state tournament, we get off the bus at like 2:30 in the morning. And then whether we have a reception the next day, and then all of a sudden camp hits at 8 a.m. and we have 125 to 150 kids. So we'll bring out the trophy and have them try to get the full experience. And we'll talk to them about like, hey, have you guys been in a tournament? Yeah. How many teams were in your tournament? Well, 6, 8, 16. Whoa, 16. That's a lot. Well, we just won a tournament that there was no pool play and there was 146 teams, whatever it is. I usually look it up to try to give them an accurate number, but that's something that's great about our community. We have great support throughout. Our booster club does an outstanding job, so we can kind of run a collegiate style program from the standpoint of if we want to get machines, we have hack attacks, two junior hacks for both levels. So then our middle schools are able to use them. Our freshman JV practices combined. So that gives us great development, and it helps our coaches if they don't have to throw BP all the time and they're actually able to see velo. It sustains their time too. And we've had a stable staffing kind of throughout that we try to give our guys areas where they can be experts in and kind of expand on those without overbearing them. And then when we get to the end of the year, we need our lower levels to make the 4-hour trek for a scouting up in Chicago. They're still able to be charged up and bring back the information that can help propel us.
Coach, I actually want to hop in there. You touched on your staff. We talked a little bit about your arms earlier. You guys are pretty loaded with arms. We talked about the junior arms you got, but you also have Tyler Powell and Dax Dunnell that are seniors. Powell's going to SIUE. Dunnell's going to John A. I know Coach Mike Sabatino's your pitching coach down there, who's highly regarded in that area of the state. Just kind of talk me through what you guys are able to do just from a development standpoint with your arms, because it's rare to have that many good arms in high school. So just talk me through what you guys are doing from a development standpoint there.
Sure. Yeah. I've been fortunate. When I was at Triad, I was also the pitching coach, and I wouldn't say I was a pitching coach. I was the guy that made sure that the pitchers got work. And then I carried on the same duties that I have now of take the ball, give the ball type stuff. But in between then, it allows me to focus on some other things. And Mike Waldo was with me, or I was actually with him because he was there before me. He had been coaching since 1980 with my dad when he volunteered. And then I can't even remember the actual year that he retired. And now he's an assistant coach at SIUE basketball. And they got a really good team this year, so it's going to be fun to follow their program. But he did a great job of making sure that the guys got daily work and were competitive and got there and everything from the weights to making sure that they're throwing their pins and competing on the mounds. And Mike does the same thing from that standpoint. Mike's really adept at a lot of the modern throwing programs and is able to individualize a lot of different things. And obviously we have a lot of depth. This is probably the most depth that we've had pitching. It won't guarantee success. It's kind of allowed us to play the schedule that we're going to play and also play with the freedom. Like, okay, if we lose more games or whatever, I mean, we were 4-5 after we came back from Hoover last year. And, our guys didn't miss a beat. They went back and then we faced O'Fallon, and it was like, oh my gosh, we didn't even go there as far as the standpoint of what could our record be. It was about getting better, and our guys buy into that. But that's going to be a challenge. I mean, that's a challenge that we already talk about our guys and before weights or bring them in the office and talk to them about, like, we have several guys that are going to be competing for innings. And that's going to be a challenge. So that'll be something that we'll have to go through. But those guys, I mean, the upside, the good thing is we're not locking in on anything of, well, this guy's our number one already, this guy's our number three, whatever it is. It's go out and compete and do the best you can. And that helps those guys prepare when they actually get to college, because they've been in those environments and they've had to go out and earn everything. And that's not to say that we have that depth every year, but this is kind of a rare occasion where you have guys that have been seasoned or are ready to break out, like a Dax Dunnell. And Tyler Powell has shown it at different times, but to do it over a stretch of time.
I just remember we were watching your guys' third place game, and Tyler came in to close the game. And I was kind of blown away just because I know we have old friend Diego Solares was on this podcast before and with us. And I just remember asking, like, who's this Powell kid? Because, like, I felt like, didn't hear a ton about him in the spring, and then he came out and was honestly lights out for you guys to close out that third place game. So really excited to see what he does for you guys this spring.
Yeah. Well, I mean, kind of go back on Mike, Coach Sabatino. He was a guy that we hired knowing that Coach Waldo was going to be retiring sometime in the near future. And he came in and led our freshmen, and then works with some guys at a training facility nearby. And he just individualizes everything. And his demeanor is kind of that calm presence that guys can go out and trust what they do, but he also holds them accountable. And I don't see confrontations. There's that testing and let's expand your boundaries, but he does a great job of monitoring what they're doing and giving them the information. And we've adapted a lot of our, like we used track for the pitching and for him organizing what the pitchers are doing each day. And we're getting to the point where we're organizing a lot of our offense and defensive items through that.
I don't want to keep you too long, and if you do need to go, just let us know. But one thing I wanted to ask, because first off, I feel very fortunate that you were willing to come on the podcast. You were one of our first options and choices for a reason. I think you are a huge positive for Illinois high school baseball. You're one of the best guys out there. From just your knowledge of the game, your passion for what you do, trying to do it the right way. You mentioned trying to run it like a college program. The amount of respect that we have for you is tremendous, and the success, shows it for itself. But I also you have a very unique background in Illinois, in Edwardsville. It's been a family affair for you. Starting with when you were a kid. I don't know, your dad coached at Edwardsville, then you went through and played at Edwardsville. Now you coach at Edwardsville. Both of your boys went through Edwardsville. Both were lucky enough to host a state title trophy. Just take me through your childhood, how you got into the game, what your dad was all about, his coaching background. Is that really what pushed you into wanting to be a coach? I just find it not remarkable, but just really cool that you guys have been ingrained in that community, and there's been so many quality Funkhousers to come out of there. So talk to me about the beginning days as a player. How cool was it watching your kids come through, and just, what set you on this path?
Sure. My dad was the high school coach until 1981. And he did it for, I think, 7 years, if I'm not mistaken. And it was just, I was a bat boy then and hung out around the team. And then whenever I was younger, he would take me. SIU Edwardsville had a turf patch when nobody really had turf. But they had a turf patch just outside their track area and close to their softball field that I would go take ground balls. He would hit me ground balls and throw batting practice. And it was just a big open area, and it was like a playground for me before every Little League game. I mean, we probably played like 18 Little League games. So he would always go we would leave about 2 hours for the game, go there, get an hour of work, and then we would show up at the Little League game with everybody else. And it gave my dad really instilled that love for the game without having pressure, but make sure you get work. And then I was able to watch his. I remember hanging out in Springfield when they were at the state tournament, and be able to see their 80 team play. Actually, 80 was his last year. Sorry. And see them compete at the state tournament. So, and then he came into, and I think it was in like third grade or fourth grade. He came in show and tell and brought a big old school calendar with the Pepsi sponsorship on there. And I kind of saw everybody light up that they're intrigued by it. So I think I always had in the back of my mind, I wanted to coach. And then had the privilege of playing for Coach Pyle. And we had a lot of good players. It was just fun playing with other guys that loved the game and loved to compete. And Coach Pyle just had a great influence on our whole team of just like, it doesn't matter who you are, we're going to go out and compete. And we made it to the state tournament my sophomore year. Yeah, I played shortstop and second base. The pitcher for that game in particular moved me to shortstop, and that was fun being able to be in that setting. And then my junior year, Jay Thompson ended up knocking us out. We had a really good team, but it was a 2-class system. And then my senior year, we ended up making it to state and actually beat Joliet Catholic in the championship. So, I played with guys like Tom Price he was the career wins leader at Notre Dame, played for Pat Murphy. I know my sophomore year, my first 2 letters were from Duke and from Pat Murphy from Notre Dame. And my academics were going to be the first thing that I looked at as a sophomore.
I thought you would have tested into the Ivy League.
I ran into Pat Murphy at a clinic, and he told me that I turned him down for a scholarship. He told everybody in front. Everybody asked me, "Man, you must have been really good."
But I'll take it all day long. Keep going,
he's
Coach.
Exaggerating,
yeah.
And I was not that good. But the 450 people at the I-70 clinic thought I was pretty good. But I got a chance to play with Tom Pry. He played like 3 or 4 years with the Dodgers and probably had a chance to make it to the big leagues until he ended up retiring. And then Mark Little ended up breaking through in the big leagues and played with the Cardinals and Rockies and a few other teams, played in the postseason for the Diamondbacks. And Dave Slimmer, I got guys up and down the road. JJ Serba were 2 guys that played both at Missouri State. Joe Blassigan was another pitcher that played at Missouri State. So I was around a lot of guys that were a lot better than me, that loved the game, respected the game, and gave me that experience. And then I went to Western Illinois and was able to play there, and played with a guy named Rick Short, who's now the hitting coach for one of the hitting coaches for the Diamondbacks, and was a scout. And prior to that, made it to the big leagues. I think he was 1 for 1, hit a double, got sent down, and then came back at the end of the year. After he got traded to the Cubs, and then played in Japan for like 5 years. But just a great baseball guy as well as a great guy. But Dick Paulo gave me a great opportunity to play. And then I was a grad assistant there as a semester. And then when I came back, I was at Triad for 3 years. Mike Scroggins was the baseball coach whenever I was in high school, but he was the principal at the time. So when I called over there looking for a place to student teach, he welcomed me with open arms. And then their baseball coach was looking to kind of go take over the football program. So that opened up a position for me. So I was taking over. I think I was hired at 22 and as their head coach, and that in a growing community and a bunch of kids that love playing. And we had a great experience there. I loved the relationships that we established there. And we were able to win conference a couple years. And then whenever I came over to Edwardsville, just being back there and seeing the opportunity to continue to expand. I remember working Illinois Clinic, and Mike Napoleon and Jay Thompson are there, and a bunch of guys. And I hear some guys, we're at breakfast, and I hear some guys kind of like, "Hey, who's got that Edwardsville job? Who's going to get that Edwardsville job? And one of the guys was like pointing at me, like, I think Funkhouser got it. They're like, who? And they're like, so then they start gigging me. They're like,
Exactly.
oh, so you got the Edwardsville job. You know, if you lose, you're going to get fired. And I was like, well, that might be the case. I mean, if you lose one game. And our superintendent was Dr. Ed Hightower, who is a big time basketball official, did 10 big Final Fours, and he liked to win. So that was something we were fortunate. We made the state tournament the first couple of years, and had some teams after that too. And he had a great vision for continuing to expand our program. We built the field up that we had. The JV turf field was kind of created because the football field, the construction, they kind of messed up on that a little bit, and they were able to give us an infield for free the first time. And we've been able to expand. So it's been great. Our community continues to grow, and our school's always been supportive of what we do, and they kind of give the freedom to schedule the way we want to schedule, and we respect the support that we get from our community and our administration, and our parents are awesome with, like, we have a golf outing, then we'll do the kickoff classic to open the year, and then we'll play at Busch Stadium every year, which is just one of those other things that give our kids, it seems like we've built in within the schedule where we have kind of special events every couple weeks or whatever, whether it's the kickoff classic, and then maybe the Busch game, and then this year it'll be going to Cary. Last year we went to Hoover, and then our own tournament later, and along the way you have conference and all those other things. So our guys are able to get a great experience that we don't see a drop off kind of within our practices, because our guys always know that there's something that's coming up to test us. And then it's my job to make sure that we don't overload. Like, I mean, we kind of cleared the schedule. So when we went to Cary, we weren't going to be exhausted there or coming back. And we'll have chances to refine our game. So just a great set. I mean, there's not a better setting for me in particular. And Craig Olau is another guy with our staff that has been with us for several years. And we've always had guys that wanted to be a part of something that's bigger than themselves. And that's what I feel privileged to be a part of.
Grateful that I can consider you a friend, and continue to watch what you're doing down there at Edwardsville. It's been really, really fun to watch. And the fact that you guys were going for a three-peat this past year, and from all we can see on our end, it looks like there's no reason why you guys aren't going to scare, Joliet and the state title again and make a run for it. And we'll be following you. I'm sure I'll be in touch, and I would love to have you back on, because there's more I want to ask you. Like, I could go for a long time here, Coach. Just with everything you've been through, everything you've done, all the players you've coached. I'd love to keep throwing back some names. I know you mentioned a lot of names that you played with, but guys you've coached.
Do you have time for like one quick question, Tim?
Sure, I'm good.
All right. So I have one question, and I'm kind of glad you brought it up with that story about the convention when the coaches were giving you some a hard time. So, like, dealing with expectations, like whether it be locally or on a larger scale, do you guys feel any pressure, or do you feel like there's expectations that you have to, perform to, or how do you deal with that?
I mean, I think it kind of goes back to the love of the game. I wouldn't say it's easy to do, but I truthfully don't put myself in a framework or want our setting to be pressured. Like, I guess you could look at pressure as two different things. The pressure to do what you're supposed to be doing every day is there. If you want to call that pressure, I wouldn't call that pressure. It's just about being focused and achieving the task at hand in a really micro level, and enjoying that passion for that. Like, a lot of people watch the game and they're like, oh, the game's really boring. It's slow. Well, if you really understand what's going into each pitch, and you understand how you got there with each skill development, then I think it builds that kind of mind that's really like intrigued, like, ooh, what could we be like? So we try to instill that on our players. And then I think as a staff, I never looked at when I was younger, whenever somebody said that to me at that coach's clinic, I was like, well, I'm younger. I've always kind of wanted to coach in college. So if we lose and it doesn't work out, I'm still young enough to figure something else out. Now, I'm going to try 100%, and ultimately that's all I could do, which sounds easier said than done most of the time, but then I just try to simplify that. And then the same thing as I'm sure I coached with a little more pressure my first few years, but then I think experience, and then kind of grew in my faith in God, and just realizing how minuscule kind of the baseball realm is, but the relationship building and the love for each player, and then to expand that and try to build that amongst our team has given me kind of that presence of like, let's just go out and enjoy the game to the highest level that we can and enjoy our time together. So from there, I don't like our team. We didn't really talk. I think we talked maybe twice. I heard the team talk about a repeat after the 2022 season. And then last year, I don't even really think we even talked about like a three-peat. Like I'm sure the guys, it was driving force, but I didn't hear it in the locker room. We didn't have to address it as a team. It was just, I think our mantra of just being on mission each day and taking care of what's ahead of us. We know kind of what's at the end.
Is there a runner that you sent from third base? Is there a hit and run call? Is there a steal call that you have put on that lives with you forever and ever that was a bad call that sticks with you and you're up at night and randomly will think about it or something?
Oh, well, I probably had a lot of those. I mean, I realize that's one of those things where you realize that you're going to make mistakes and the players are too. So I probably used to feel like we had to play perfect baseball. And whenever I did that, that was bad. And then if I did it on myself, then I had to be self-reflective. But it was funny. I was just surfing YouTube maybe last night or the night before, and somehow it came up, the Maris game that you're talking about. And I knew, I think it was Ewell, but it was the guy that had the big league arm. And we knew from our scouting report, I knew when I watched infield, I talked to all the guys, and then sure enough, our guy hit it so firm against the wall that it came back to him. And I got caught up trying to send him, and he had no chance. So then I stopped him, and then he got in a rundown and got out. So that was on me. But I would say last year in the semi, I kind of wishing away I would have safety squeezed when we ended up getting first and third. We've utilized that at times. And I didn't do it. I probably would have later in that bat, but I didn't do it. And we end up flying out. But those are different things that I think I've learned, that if we're in that moment, I need to kind of trust my gut, as well as Tom Pyle was really good about that. He probably coached with his gut a little more. But I've learned to be like, let's lay it out there. I mean, Drake Westcott, we had steal third. And then they threw it away. We picked up a run in the state tournament one year, state championship, against, in 2022, we had a runner on second. Blake Burris, who just finished up playing at Arkansas State, laid down a bunt to third, runner from second, which is a pinch runner. We're having him pretty much go, or he's going to shut down if he can't, but he lays down a great bunt to third. They had DeMarco that had played short, pitched, but they had like 5 pitchers each year. So when we scouted, it was like, hey, when they get on the mound, their defense isn't going to be as good. And it looked like their third baseman was maybe a freshman.
Yep,
so
Jaden Lott winner.
Hey, let's put the pressure on him. And he had a tougher play, so it wasn't like he lost the game. He had a tougher play, and sure enough, the throw's a little up line, and their guy pulls off, and our guy goes home, and we're able to kind of steal a run there. But those type of things that we always practiced, but now we practice with more like, what are the ways? How can we score a run when we're not going to do it with 5+ hits.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we really hone in on vaulted leads, being able to identify when the guy's not holding us, when guys are holding runners really well? How can we either move runners via the bunt, or just be good with two strike situations, or have enough awareness that we're starting a runner and we want them to run, and realize that we might get thrown out here, but we're going to take a little bit of chance. I know that came into action last year against Collinsville. We stole third base with Hunter Baugh, and he wouldn't be a guy that you would say, oh, he's going to just flat out run like Hayden Moore does back in the day. And sure enough, he got a slider away. Their catcher tried to make a throw that was tougher and threw it out in the outfield, and we were able to sneak in a second run to kind of an insurance run. But being able to talk through our guys in advance to know, like, when we're so-called rolling the dice, there's really a percentage behind it, and we want to equip them to play with that freedom. So,
well, and I love it because the
more of
whole
a back and
onus
forth
behind it is you're putting pressure on the defense in a tight situation. Like you're any way that you can, you're putting pressure on the defense. You're trying to catch them at a time when maybe they're not expecting it. Like you said, a Drake Westcott stealing third, but it's like, if you have confidence in Drake Westcott and knowing your guys like that, I think you know your guys and you put them in these situations throughout the year. So it's not happening for the first time at the state title.
That's the key for me. Is I used to coach thinking we had those tools in our arsenal, but we weren't I didn't fully equip them. If a person got picked off first base and in a big throwing or a big stealing situation, I hadn't equipped them enough. So then it was like, I mean, I could look over there like, come on, why? Like, you knew, why couldn't we execute that? Well, now we spend more time executing. It's not to say that we're going to execute every single time, but I think our percentages, because the players know the why. They know the why. They've been equipped with the how, and then they've been in that fire competition. And when you do that, they're like, okay, this is my time to go. And there's no blockade. There's not that doubt. And if they do, I tell them, look at me. Like, I'm the guy that didn't pay attention to my own scouting report with Ewell throwing. But if you get thrown out, it's on me. Now do your job and get a good jump, or take in the intangibles. And these are the things that you need to look for, rather than me just looking for it in the coach's box. So I think it's a higher level of communication, like they're then equipped to play at a college level, because if they're given that freedom, or even if they're not given that freedom, but they know why the coach is doing it, because now I can seal on a vaulted lead because he's not varying his looks or his timing, etc. He's not paying attention. So it just makes for an enjoyable kind of pathway. So thanks for everything.
Oh, thank you. And listening to you talk, it's evident, you're all about it. You're looking at all angles. You know the game. You're relaying the messages to your team, and it's a breath of fresh air just to talk to you and to talk baseball and to talk how you talk to your guys and what you guys are trying to do. And I am a big believer that, college baseball, pro baseball, high school baseball, like the coaches at the high school level in the game of baseball make such a big difference by preparing their team. And you can see it. The coaches that traditionally make a run in the postseason, yeah, they have talent and they have a good roster, but they don't beat themselves, and they're constantly putting pressure on the other team, and they know how to get the most out of their players, and they are they're at their best, in the postseason. And I've always felt like you've strived to get your teams to be playing the best at the end of the year, and that's what it's all about. And I can't thank you enough, Coach. And we're gonna have to bring you back on, because there's some unfinished
I got three
business.
things real quick.
Bring it.
Number one, thanks for everything that you've done and what you guys do. And I know I touched on it earlier, but there's multiple times, kind of going back to the family thing. Like, I didn't get to talk about your boys. Talking about my own kids enough, but when, like, you were able to help me through that process, and I was able to bounce on different people, and you were one of those main people to talk through that recruiting process and giving me that independent source. So I really appreciate you doing that. And along that path, like my oldest has finished up his last year at Lindenwood. He's playing for PJ Finnegan, and he's really excited about this season. It's fun to be able to drive 45 minutes across the bridge, or about 35 really, to St. Charles, and be able to watch them compete in the LVC and other teams. And just so privileged about the setting that he's in over there and what they do in that university. And then my youngest is down at Central Missouri, where they were number 1 in the country for a large portion of the year last year as Division II. And he redshirted last year. He's able to get back playing this year, and he's going to have to make his own way, but it'll be fun to watch his continued growth. But Coach Crooks and his staff does a great job down there. They've built a great culture, and they have awesome facilities, and so competitive. So I don't even know what the third one was, but I just wanted to mention those things before I got off.
I love to hear it about your boys, because they both seem to have found a really good fit for them. And I know Evan, did the JUCO route too before he found his place at Lindenwood. And
sure. Yep.
They both have worked to get to where they've gotten to. Especially, I know Evan has put in the hours in the gym to get himself physically as strong as possible. And I think the world of Cole and what he can do down there. And looking forward to following both of them this year. So
great. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for all you do.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
Appreciate it.